Just before this episode, here's how you can get more from Never a Truer Word. If you're listening to this podcast on Spotify, you can subscribe to this channel to get early access to the weekly analysis episodes, video episodes so you can see the statements as I analyse them, and exclusive content too. And if you're here on YouTube, then become a member of the channel to get early access to everything and exclusive content not available anywhere else. When you've got two actors facing off against one another in a war of words, who do you believe? Because at least one of them is putting on a performance. And if we look at what they're really saying and what they're not saying, then we'll get closer to the truth and see who's being themselves and who's playing the role of an innocent victim.
Slightly difficult time with Kevin. Yeah.
At the time you were working with him?
Yeah. He's a handsy guy.
But Guy, you need to grow up.
Welcome to Never a Truer Word, where we look at the words that people choose to use to see if they're telling the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Looking at the words using my statement investigation process, which anyone can learn to give themselves an advantage in understanding the people all around them. And we're going to look at the case of what Guy Pearce says about working with Kevin Spacey and his behaviour when they were filming LA Confidential, and how Spacey has hit back at what Guy has said. So did Guy have an abusive experience at the hands of Kevin? Let's dig into the interviews and the statements and see what it is that we can unearth. And what I'm going to be looking for here, it's a classic war of words. There is some conflict going on with Guy Pearce. Where is the stress? What are the things that are causing him the stress? I want to be straight at the very front. I'm not going to say whether I think Guy Pearce was abused by Kevin Spacey or not, because that is his story to tell and I wasn't there, so I will never know for sure. But I am going to look at what it is that causes Guy Pearce stress and indications of when he is being truthful or deceptive if I see them in what he has said about Kevin Spacey. And as for Kevin, what I really want to dig in when he hits back at Guy is what is he saying and what is he not saying. So let's take a look. First of all, let's go back to 2017 and Guy Pearce.
Kevin Spacey, who you worked with on LA Confidential.
Yeah. Tough one to talk about at the moment. Yeah. Amazing actor. Yeah. Incredible actor. Slightly difficult time with Kevin. Yeah.
At the time you were working with him?
Yeah. He's a handsy guy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Thankfully I was 29 and not 14.
Yeah. Interesting.
A lot in that one there. We have, it's kind of light-hearted as well because it's a comedy or a chat show, I guess. But let's dig in to what it was that the Guy Pearce said then. So it's put to him, Kevin Spacey, who you work with in LA Confidential, and Guy's first response is, yeah. So what is going on there? Is that him building himself up to say something difficult that he's got to say? He just sits there and goes, yeah. And then he says, tough one to talk about at the moment. Yeah. So he's indicating to us he's not going to talk about this straight away. He's not going to come out the bat and say it. He's got some nervousness around saying what it is that he wants to say. He carries on and says, amazing actor, incredible actor, slightly difficult time with Kevin. Yeah. Now that first part of that response there, amazing actor, incredible actor. You'll notice that he doesn't join himself, or he doesn't put Kevin Spacey in there very personally as well. He doesn't say, I think that Kevin is an amazing actor, or I think Kevin, or he's an amazing actor, he's an incredible actor. He doesn't use any of those words. There's no I's or he's in there at all. It's just amazing actor, incredible actor. That suggests to me some dislike for Kevin Spacey there, for sure. Then he says, slightly difficult time with Kevin. Yeah. So we've got, again, Guy has taken himself out of there. He doesn't say, I had a slightly difficult time with Kevin. He's creating distance there. Now, sometimes that can be because the person talking is being deceptive, or it could be that they didn't really have a slightly difficult time with Kevin. They just knew there was a slightly difficult time with Kevin, which is why they're not putting themselves in there. It could be a protection mechanism as well. He doesn't want to put himself back in that situation. So that's three different reasons why that distance could be there. All of them might be possible to some reason, which is why the words have come out as they have. Slightly difficult time with Kevin. Yeah, but you'll notice who has appeared there, which is Kevin Spacey has appeared there with the words with Kevin. So what he's taken himself out of that situation about a slightly difficult time, but he's not taken Kevin Spacey out of that slightly difficult time. That's an interesting observation. He's asked the time you were working with him, and Guy Pearce says, yeah, he's a handsy guy. Now, here we have a repetition. He's a handy guy. So he says and he's not ready to say the next words yet. The next words for Guy are difficult for him to say, and those next words are, he's a handsy guy. So again, sometimes this might be down to deception, but again, this could be because it is causing him stress. When we stutter, when we restart, when we retake, when we're not ready to go on with our words and repeat what we've just said, it's an indication that stress is happening. So I'm going to put down again, stress here is being caused by talking about this situation. You'll notice again that Guy is taken out of this sentence, even though the word guy is in there. It's Guy as in talking about the guy that is Kevin Spacey. If he had a different name, this would have been much easier. Yeah, he's a handsy guy. So it's not he was handsy with me or he laid hands on me or anything like that, but it's very straight and direct. It's not he's a kind of handsy guy. I heard he was a handsy guy. It's he's a handsy guy. So that would suggest to me that Guy Pearce has knowledge that Kevin Spacey is a handsy guy. And then he lobs in a joke at the end which gets big laughs. It's not very funny, it's a very dark joke, but I understand it was a sort of nervous laughter that came there. He says, yeah, thankfully I was 29 and not 14. And I want to draw attention to that because age is incredibly important all the way through the statements that we'll look at from Guy, but also from Kevin Spacey as well. Yeah, thankfully I was 29 and not 14. Hell of a thing to say if you think about it. Hell of an allegation to make or insinuation to make, but age is going to be very important here. But I'll also say that that's quite straightforward. Thankfully, I was 29 and not 14. So now we come to the present day. Guy Pearce is interviewed for a podcast called Awards Chatter, I think it's called, and he's asked once more about Kevin Spacey. Let's hear what he says.
One question just to get out of the way. I mean, at the time, one of the more established people on that movie, having won an Oscar the year, maybe the same year you're filming it, was Spacey. And I guess I just wonder, as things that have come to light more recently, did you have a okay experience or?
Well, no. I mean, and you know, people know that I didn't, and I've sort of spoken publicly about it. But I think I did that thing that I think a lot of people do. I don't want to use the word victim because I even though I probably was a victim to a degree, I was certainly not a victim by any means to the extent that other people have been to sexual predators. But I did that thing that you do where you brush it off and go, oh no, that's nothing. Oh no, that's nothing. And I did that for 5 months, and really sort of I was scared of Kevin, because he's quite an aggressive man and extremely charming and brilliant at what he does, and really impressive, etc. So he holds a room remarkably. But I was young and susceptible, and he targeted me, no question. And I used to say to myself, and I was there with my wife, Kate, and I used to say the only days I feel safe is when Simon Denny's on set, because I'm dumped like a hot potato and he focuses on Simon Denny because he was 10 times prettier than I am. So, and it wasn't until things came to light really in 2017. And I had a couple of confrontations with Kevin post that, and that got ugly. But it wasn't until everything came to light in 2017 and I heard about this, obviously it's post Me Too, or it's sort of in the midst of Me Too, really. And I heard these stories about Kevin sort of officially as news stories. And I was in London working on something, and I heard this, and I broke down and sobbed, and I couldn't stop. And I think it really sort of dawned on me the impact that had occurred and how I'd sort of brushed it off and how I'd sort of either shelved it or blocked it out or whatever. And that was a really, really incredible wake-up call, I suppose. And then I went on, funnily enough, at the end of the 2017, that was like in November 2017, and then December 2017, I went back to Australia and I went on a talk show there, and I got asked about Kevin, and I just blurted it all out. And of course, then it all, hit the press, and I'm sort of in that weird position of going, I don't want all the focus on this. I don't want it, but at the same time, I don't want him to get away with what he gets away with, So thank you. So I just try and be more honest about it now and call it for what it is,
So that was Guy talking on a podcast recently, and the question is put to him, working with Stacey, did you have an okay experience? And he says, well, no. And that's the first thing he says. Well, no. It's a yes/no question. Did you have an okay experience? Yes, I did. No, I didn't. Now, he does say well, first of all, which means I'm going to give you some sort of explanation, maybe something that you're not expecting. But he also says very close to the beginning of his answer, no, indication of a truthful answer. And then he goes on to say, well, no, I mean, and people know that I didn't, and I've sort of spoken publicly about it. Now, this word sort of, if I hear sort of, it makes me dig in, because is there more happening there? When someone says something sort of happened, it means it didn't really happen. Usually it means that it didn't quite happen quite like this, or I'm boiling it all down to something that sort of happened, rather than telling you what did happen. But if you actually listen a lot to Guy talking in this podcast, he uses sort of very much like a crutch, like some people say, so I think that's what we've got going on here with Guy, is this sort of crutch of sort of. So I'm not going to be too critical and pick into his sort of that goes on quite a lot as he talks in this podcast extract. He says, I've sort of spoken publicly about it. I'm pulling out the word publicly there because this is again a theme that runs through both what Guy says and what Kevin Spacey says about how public this has all become. So publicity and talking publicly about it seems to be important to both of them, I think I would say. He then goes on to say, but I think I did that thing. I think a lot of people do. I don't want to use the word victim. Now, this is very stumbly. So this again suggests stress from Guy in talking about this. So what is he talking about? He's talking about being a victim. Is he a victim? Is he not a victim? He's, I think, got some stress in his head about whether he wants to describe himself as a victim or not. So that's why that is coming through. And you'll see he says, I did that thing a lot of people do. So he says a lot of, and he's going to say something, thinks better of it, and then goes back to say a lot of people do. And I wonder if he was going to say, I did that thing a lot of victims do. And instead he changes that to people, because he doesn't want to categorize himself as a victim for a reason that is inside his head, which we can't go inside his head and find out why that is. But that's what I think is going on there. He is seeming to be wanting to be a bit of a safety of a crowd thing here by saying, I've done something that a lot of people do, which is a persuasive technique that we do, which is we join ourselves to a mass of other people or a group of other people to make our actions seem reasonable, because we do what a lot of other people do. Now, sometimes, again, that can be deceptive. I'm just like other people. Lots of other people do the same things as me. With this one, what I do take some comfort in is that he owns it first and foremost. He doesn't say that lots of people do this. He says, I did that thing a lot of people do. So he owns it and says, I did the thing first and foremost. Then he joins himself to other people. He might be using the other people to say, I wasn't weak by not saying anything. Lots of other people do this as well. But he owns the fact that he did this thing, first of all, by saying, I did that thing a lot of other people do. He stutters again. I don't want to use the word victim. Now that's want to use the word victim. It's not I won't use the word victim. It's I don't want to use the word victim. So if you had to ask me, what do you think is going on in his head? I think he does feel like a victim, but potentially, and he talks about this a little bit bit later, he realizes there are bigger or people who are more of a victim than he is. But he does feel, I think, the word victim, he is identifying himself with the word victim. And I do think he doesn't want to use it, but he may feel like he should use the word victim. And then he goes on to say, because even though I probably was a victim to a degree, and here we see him qualifying that word victim and very publicly qualifying that word victim by saying, I probably was a victim to a degree. So he's got this thing in his head of, was I a victim? Was I not a victim? He's certainly not trying to persuade us that he was a victim by going, I was really a victim. I was totally a victim. I was 110% a victim. He's sitting here giving his thought process, which is, was I a victim? Was I not a victim? That's what's going on with him here. And then he says, I was certainly not a victim by any means to the extent that other people have been to sexual predators. Let's get all this down. I was certainly not a victim. So he knows there are people who are maybe more apt to describe themselves or have more right to describe themselves as victims than him. But again, he's not ruling himself out of being a victim here. And to the extent that other people have been to sexual predators. Now, you'll notice that it's the other people have been to sexual predators. He's not quite joining himself up there with sexual predators himself. He's creating a little bit of a distance there with what's going on. But again, he's being very direct. He's kind of letting us into his thought process. He's not trying to persuade us of what a hard time he's had. In fact, what he's doing is saying, other people have had it much worse than me. And then he says, but I did that thing that you do where you brush it off and go, oh no, that's nothing. Oh no, that's nothing. Now, he's got that thing there where he does one of those things that I point out quite a lot, which is not talking about himself, but talking about you. That thing you do where you brush it off and go, oh no, that's nothing. Oh no, that's nothing. Now, very often I would pick up on that and go, you're not talking about yourself. You are talking about someone else. But a couple of things here. Number one, if he's talking about something that's very traumatic, he may try and create distance using that word you and not want to put himself in there and talk about it personally. But number two is he does indeed use that word I again. So it's I did that thing. So I think we have, again, that ownership from him of what happened and the actions that he took. I did that thing that you do. Yeah, he's owning what he's saying again, but there is also this conflict inside the words that he's using where I think he wants to create a bit of distance, and very certainly in all the stutters and restarts that we've going on there is stress being shown, but he does own it. He carries on and says, and I did that for, 5 months and really sort of, I was scared of Kevin. Now, look, we've got more stress there because he doesn't say very much in the first part of this extract. And I did that for, 5 months and really sort of, so he did it for 5 months, but there's a lot of filler around there again. I think he's building up to saying something that causes him stress. And what follows that stress? I was scared of Kevin. So I think he was scared of Kevin. That's a very direct sentence. I was scared of Kevin. There's no persuasive words in there. There's nothing in there to convince us that this really did happen. He's not trying hard to make the words work harder for him. He just says it very plainly. It's a very straight line, that sentence. I was scared of Kevin. And you'll notice as well, we've got the past tense there, was. So he's not scared of Kevin anymore, but he was scared of Kevin at some point because he's quite an aggressive man. So again, we've got this stumbling from him because he's quite an aggressive man. He's quite extremely charming and brilliant at what he does, and really impressive, etc. Look at the way he's ordered the attributes that he gives Kevin Spacey there, because when we list things, the thing that comes first, the very first thing we say, is likely the most important thing in our mind. It's the first one that springs to our mind. It's likely the priority, which is aggressive. And then that comes before all the other things that he lists. So it's aggressive, then it's charming, then it's brilliant, and then it's impressive. And then we've got an etc. As if none of that really matters. It's just a list that's going to go. But the first thing that he said in that list was the fact that he found him aggressive. So again, straightforward. He's quite an aggressive man. More stutters as he continues. So he holds a room remarkably. There we go. He. And again, this is a stutter about Kevin Spacey. So Kevin Spacey seems to be someone that causes Guy Pearce genuine stress because stuttering around stuff is very hard to do in Deception about stuttering about something that makes you stressful. The stress, the stuttering, all very natural, something we don't control when we talk. It's not there in the part of our head where we control what we say. It comes out very physiologically. He, holds a room remarkably. And then look what we've got here again. We've got another mention of age, but I was young. So we've got one more mention of age. Guy Pearce talking about age there. I was young, susceptible, and he targeted me, no question. He targeted me again, straightforward. And you'll notice, unlike some of the other things we've got going on, there's 3 words in that extract. He targeted me. 2 of those words are the people involved. He, Kevin Spacey, me, Guy Pearce. So there we have, he targeted me. Again, very straightforward. And although there's a lot of going back and forward and thinking about the right words that he wants to use, when he uses words about Kevin Spacey and how he seems to have a view of him in his head, I was scared of him and he targeted me. They are very straightforward, very direct words. And then he says, no question, which is a bit of a convincer. It's put there to say, I don't have any doubt there at all, neither should you have any doubt, but that he targeted me is very straightforward. He carries on. And I used to say to myself, and this is one of my top tips, when someone is being deceptive, it's very hard for them to let us in on their thought process. They might tell you, I remember doing this, I remember doing that, but what we've got here is him just letting himself in on what was going through his head at the time. If you're being deceptive, the last thing you want to do is let people know anything close to what is going on in your head. So I used to say to myself, stops, because he doesn't tell us what he used to say to myself. I was there with my wife, so I feel this might be something he actually said to his wife. Kate, and I used to say, the only days I feel safe is when Simon Denny is on set because I'm dumped like a hot potato. And he focuses on Simon Denny because he was 10 times prettier than I am. So, and it wasn't until things came to light, really in 2017, and I had a couple of confrontations with Kevin post that, and that got ugly. Again, very direct. I had a couple of conversations with Kevin. That got ugly. So I've got really a sense in my head again that he's being truthful here, that he has some confrontations or a couple of confrontations with Kevin post that, and that got ugly. And then he carries on, but it wasn't until everything came to light in 2017, and I heard about this, obviously it's post-Me Too, or it's sort of in the midst of Me Too, really, and I heard these stories about Kevin, sort of officially as news stories. And I was in London working on something, and I heard this, and I broke down, and I sobbed, and I couldn't stop. And I think it really sort of dawned on me the impact that had occurred. Now, this is much less, there's still a little bit of stuttering going on, but it's much less stop-start than when he was talking about events filming LA Confidential. Much more direct, it's much slower, the pace has changed as well if you go back and listen to it again, when he's talking about the effect it had on him, when it sort of dawned on him what had happened. And I was in London working on something, and I heard this, and I broke down and sobbed, and I couldn't stop. Once more, we've got very, very direct language from Guy Pearce. He's not trying to persuade us of anything here. I broke down and sobbed. No needless words in there at all. And I couldn't stop. Once again, just very direct. I sobbed and I couldn't stop. There's nothing put in there to persuade us that he's telling us the truth or to increase the severity of what he says he was feeling at the time. Nothing there to convince us that this really happened. You got to believe me that this happened. There's none of that whatsoever. It's just very factual, very straightforward. I broke down and sobbed and I couldn't stop. And I think it really sort of dawned on me the impact that had occurred. So what he's talking about here is not what happened, not anything that happened on the filming of LA Confidential that was hard for him. What he's talking about here is his feelings at the time when he realised. And he's very straightforward on this. He's not trying to convince us that an incident had occurred sometime in the past when making LA Confidential. What he's doing is he's telling us years later how he felt about it. So he has some layers to this story that he is able to articulate very fluently. The impact that had occurred and how I sort of brushed it off and how I sort of either shelved it or blocked it out or whatever. And that was a really incredible wake-up call, I suppose. So again, the stuttering, the restarting, the thinking about it with I suppose has come out. And I went on at the end of it was like November 2017, and then December 2017, I went back to Australia, and I went on a talk show there, and I got asked about Kevin, and I just blurted it all out, and of course it hit the press. Now, I'm interested here in his word "just" there. As you'll know, if you're a regular, just always gets me digging into what was going on. I just blurted it all out. Comes very close to hit the press, and it's talking about being on a talk show. So we have here again this element of publicity and the fact this is happening in public there from Guy. I just blurted it all out, or was this kind of part of a plan? Now, I'm not saying that it was part of a plan because it is deceptive. I'm just wondering if he thought, I want to talk about Kevin Spacey. I want to out Kevin Spacey for what he has done. So he didn't just blurt it all out. It was a bit more of a plan to get it out on this talk show. And then, of course, it hit the press. So more talking about this happening publicly. And he says, and I'm sort of in that weird position of going, I don't want all the focus on this. I don't want it. But at the same time, I don't want him to get away with what he gets away with. So we've got a stutter on I at the beginning there. I is a word we very often stutter on because it's a very personal word. There is no more personal word that we can use than I. And I'm sort of in that weird position. So again, an indicator of stress. We could guess or look at what is causing that stress, but certainly that stutter on I, there's a lot of stress. And he says, I don't want him to get away with what he gets away with. So it's very direct. In some ways, I don't want him to get away with what he gets away with is saying he's getting away with things. What he doesn't say is really what it is that he gets away with. Now, this could be, again, victims of abuse may want to cause some distance, may not want to say some of the words or some of the things out loud. And that could be what is happening here. Or it's just a little bit vague because he doesn't have authentic experience to call on here. But I don't want him to get away with what he gets away with. So no, thank you. And that's thank you to the host who's showing him some empathy there. So I just try to be more honest about it now and call it for what it is. So try implies failure. More honest means that he's maybe not 100% honest, but about what? Because this is not me saying he's a liar. This is me saying that I think there is more inside him that he is not letting out, and call it for what it is. Again, we have that, well, what is it? What are you calling it? What is it? What are you holding back on there? And certainly, I think he is holding back on something there. So that's Guy's side of things. We will break down Kevin Spacey's response next. Do you ever feel like you're not hearing the full story? That could be what is happening here with the war of words between these guys. You're right. It's happening all the time. And I'm here to give you the key to seeing deeper into people's words, because it's about hearing the world with new ears. And I'm on a mission to try and get this to as many people as possible. And you can help out. If you want to unlock the secret yourself, then do follow, subscribe this channel. You will get new episodes all the time as soon as they are released. Also, just join in the movement, delve into the archives, and there's a treasure trove of them. Check out Justin Baldoni. He uses a lot of manipulative language which might be instructive when we come to look at Kevin Spacey, or look at Neil Gaiman's it's not really an apology, but look at his statement after the allegations that he faced. We'll see a lot of common themes in them. If you know someone who needs this, someone who deserves to hear the truth, then pass it on, hit the like button, share this episode, recommend it as well, because every single click, every single share, it fuels the fire. It allows me to dig deeper, analyze further, and bring this life-changing skill to many more people. So let's do this, and let's look at Kevin Spacey. And I want to talk about something. This is why you should never believe headlines. The headline there in the Hollywood Reporter, an article written by Zoe Phillips. The headline is, Kevin Spacey denies targeting Guy Pearce tells the actor to grow up. It starts: Kevin Spacey on Tuesday denied targeting Guy Pearce on the set of 1997's LA Confidential, telling Pearce to grow up and that you are not a victim. So just take that word denies. It's used in the headline, it's used in the start of the article. Let's listen to Kevin Spacey. And did he spot a denial?
Guy Pearce, I've now read the comments that you made about me, and while I would have preferred not to have to play this out in the media, you obviously have your own reasons for wanting to do exactly that. But we worked together a long time ago. You know, if I did something then that upset you, you could have reached out to me. We could have had that conversation. But instead, you've decided to speak to the press, who are now, of course, coming after me because they would like to know what my response is to the things that you said. You really want to know what my response is? Grow up. Did you also, by the way, tell the press that a year after we shot LA Confidential, you flew to Savannah, Georgia, while I was shooting Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil, just to spend time with me? I mean, did you tell the press that too? Or does that not fit into the victim narrative you have going? So anyway, I apologize that I didn't get the message that you don't like spending time with me. I mean, maybe there was another reason, I don't know. But that doesn't make any sense that you would have just been leading me on, right? But here you are now on a mission some 28 years later, after I've been through hell and back, to do what? Just in time to stop the bad guy? Huh? Is that what's going on here? What took you so long? Did your horse run out of gas? I mean, you want to have a conversation? I'm happy to do so anytime, any place. We can even do it here, live on X if you like. I've got nothing to hide. But Guy, you need to grow up. You are not a victim.
Kevin Spacey there talking on his X channel, and he starts off by saying Guy Pearce, and always at the top of statements like that I'm like, who is this person addressing? He uses the words Guy Pearce, so that is who he is talking to, and this certainly is a message for Guy Pearce. But look at the platform that he's using, and also look at the words that he's saying. This is not a message for Guy Pearce. Guy Pearce is the established audience, the one that he wants us to think, but this is for all of us. This is certainly a message for the public. Guy Pearce, I've now read the comments that you made about me, and while I would have preferred not to have this play out in the media, you obviously have your own reasons for wanting to do exactly that. So again, we have this concept of this being done publicly. I would have preferred not to play this out in the media. You obviously have your own reasons for wanting to do that, so it's very sensitive to him that this has happened publicly. Then he says, but we worked together a long time ago. Again, we've got age has been something that's very important. And so for Kevin Spacey, age does get mentioned as well. But for Kevin Spacey as well, passage of time is very important to him as well. He mentions it a lot. We worked together a long time ago. You know, if I did something then that upset you, you could have reached out to me. So we've got something here which I think is very instructive, which is that Kevin Spacey has in his head the possibility that he did something that upset Guy Pearce. Why? Because he doesn't say, I didn't do anything to upset you. Or why would you get upset with me? He has the possibility there. He says, if I did it. So there is an if in his head that he could have upset Guy Pearce. Entirely possible that he did. We don't know what that thing is, but he does have in his head the possibility that something happened that upset Guy Pearce. And he says, something then that upset you. You could have reached out to me. He's downplaying the allegations. We've heard Guy Ritchie's version of events. Handsy, he was scared of him on set. He got way too much attention from him unless Simon Denny was there. That's not something that upset you. That is a description of something way worse than that. But Kevin Spacey is downplaying what it is that Guy Pearce said about him. He says, we could have had that conversation, but instead you decided to speak to the press, who are now, of course, coming after me because they would like to know what my response is to the things that you said. Once again, we have this talk about this being public and going out to the press. Now, I want you to know something Very, very important here. It's a controlling classic. Coercive controllers, people who like to control people, people who are manipulators, much prefer having private conversations than ones that take place in public, ones where there is a recording available or other witnesses available as well. That's what coercive controllers do a lot of the time. They'll be very charming in public and when other people can see them, when there are witnesses, when there are recordings being made, but they much prefer to have conversations one-on-one with no witnesses and no recordings. And that is what Kevin Spacey is explicitly saying he would have preferred. You could have had this conversation, but instead you decided to speak to the press. He says, you really want to know what my response is? Grow up. Now, I've noted here, Guy didn't ask for a response. We've heard everything Guy had to say in that podcast. He did not ask for Kevin's side of things. He did not ask for an apology from Kevin or for Kevin to explain anything. He didn't ask for a response at all, but Kevin feels he has to give one. Feels he is more important. You really want to know what my response is? Grow up. And we have, again, this theme of age running through things. Remember, Guy Pearce said, luckily I was 29, not 14. He said at the time that Kevin Spacey was making him feel uncomfortable on LA Confidential, I was young. And now Kevin Spacey is telling Guy Pearce to grow up. Not quite sure what it means, not quite sure why it's important, but there certainly is some sense from both of them of the age, maybe even the status imbalance between the two of them. Because remember, growing up is not just about aging. Growing up is about maturing, about gaining status, becoming an elder as we go. So there is, in Guy's mind, this fact that Kevin Spacey was older, also that Kevin Spacey had a status over him, and Kevin has the exact same representation of things in his head, which is that he is the adult there, he is the one with status and he is the one with age, and that Guy needs to grow up. Very interesting. They both see things the same way. He continues, did you also, by the way, tell the press that a year after we shot LA Confidential, you flew to Savannah, Georgia, while I was shooting Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil, just to spend time with me? I mean, did you tell the press that too? Once again, this is all about what he told the press. So Kevin is not dealing with anything that's of substance that's been said by Guy. Kevin is dealing with the fact that Guy has said this publicly. It's that controlling thing that they hate the fact that their public persona is being called into doubt. So this is very, very important to Kevin that the press have been told this. Also, by the way, it just doesn't quite say that that's what happened. It's only, did you tell the press this? It's not, it doesn't say, Guy, you flew to Savannah, Georgia while I was shooting that film to spend time with me. Why didn't you tell the press that? It's more, did you tell the press that? Not that it actually happened. The focus is on what he has told the press and not on what actually happened. He says, does that not fit into the victim narrative that you have going? Now, right now, Kevin is leaning on really bad logic. The fact that Guy did this does not mean that abuse did not happen. We're very familiar with the fact that very often victims will meet up with their abuser, and sometimes it sort of blows people's minds that well, if this person was abusing them, why logically you would just avoid them, you wouldn't go and spend time with them. But time and time and time again, we see that victims can be drawn towards their abusers for many psychological reasons. So Kevin's saying, but you came and spent time with me. That's not any proof that abuse did not happen on the set of LA Confidential. So I'm seeing real themes go through Kevin, which I do not like here. And the fact that he didn't tell the press this and he's telling the press that just happened years ago. The logic from Kevin Spacey is really, really bad. Kevin's message continues. So anyway, I apologize that I didn't get the message that you don't like spending time with me. That wasn't what Guy said, really, was it? You know, Guy said he's handsy, that I feel I was a victim of him. He's very aggressive. Guy didn't say, I don't like spending time with him. Guy was much more explicit than that. But Kevin, again, is downplaying what it was that Guy said. So anyway, I apologize that I didn't get the message that you don't like spending time with me. I mean, maybe there's another reason. I don't know. But that doesn't make any sense, right? You would have been leading me on, right? leading me on. This is almost feels like he's trying to do something like out Guy Pearce, almost like saying, you're a willing participant in everything that happened, Guy. Why are you now saying that you're not? He's insinuating it. He's not got the words or the bravery or whatever it is to come out and say that directly. Or maybe he's not stupid enough to say a lie like that directly. But this is now creepy and insinuating that Guy was leading him on, which this is just classic abusive tactics going on here, where you led me on. You were well up for anything that happened. This was consensual, everything that happened. I don't like this at all. It's also diversion from anything that's happening. So he's changed the message that Guy was sending, and now he's kind of saying Guy was all part of this, and he was leading him on. But here you are, now on a mission some 28 years later, after I've been through hell and back to do what? Just in time to stop the bad guy? Huh? Is that what's going on here? We have the concept of time passing again some 28 years later. So this is very important to them. Kevin wants to say that because he hasn't mentioned this for 28 years, then it couldn't possibly have happened, is what he wants to implant in our minds. He's not saying it outright, but it's what he wants to implant in our minds. Could have happened because so much time has passed. He would have said something before then, but we know factually that is not how victims operate. Victims will often keep quiet for long amounts of time and not speak out. So the logic here, at the very least, is flawed. And I've been through hell and back. Oh, wait a minute. Now Kevin is the victim. If you studied anything about abusive ways of operating, then claiming victimhood for themselves is one of those things that they do. We saw that with leading him on. He was leading me on, and now he's claiming that this was all abuse. Oh my goodness me. I've been through hell and back. I am the victim. Don't like Kevin, as you can tell. Just in time to stop the bad guy. Huh? Is that what is going on here? He calls himself the bad guy. He literally, this is like an embedded confession. I know he's trying to set up a scenario here, but look at how much he's downplayed so much of what has happened. But then he doesn't downplay the fact that he is characterizing himself as the bad guy. That's one of the most worrying things that's there from Kevin Spacey. What took you so long? He says that what took you so long? Again, I've pointed out why this is not a valid excuse or a valid reason or a valid point that none of this abuse happened. What took you so long? Did your horse run out of gas? I mean, you want to have a conversation? I'm happy to do so anytime, any place. We can even do it here, live on X, if you like. I've got nothing to hide. That is bullying the accuser. There's no empathy there whatsoever from Kevin Spacey. So, yeah, what is happening there? What is he doing there? What took you so long is just, no, not right. And then he just starts bullying the accuser. Look, if there's one thing I found, which is that, if you're facing allegations of being an abuser, the best thing to do is not abuse the person who is claiming to be a victim, again, in the public arena. It's not really a way forward of convincing people that this guy is not an abuser. And he finishes, but Guy, you need to grow up. You are not a victim. Guy, you need to grow up. So we've got need there, which is this controlling language, telling Guy Pearce what it is that he needs to do. Also telling him, you are not a victim. That is controlling. That is saying what is going on. And also, you're not a victim of me. It's not, I didn't do anything. It's just, you are not a victim. Again, I think he's getting at this being led on, that Guy Pearce was a willing participant in anything that went on the set of LA Confidential. So that's Kevin Spacey. What do I think is going on? Well, let's look at what Guy says first. Kevin Spacey scares him. I believe that. He certainly causes him stress. And when he talks about Kevin Spacey, there is a lot of stuttering going on. I do think that Guy believes that Spacey is predatory, but he's very straightforward when he's talking about how he found Spacey and also the effect of Spacey's actions on him. So Guy Pearce, I find very credible in what he says. As for Kevin Spacey, look, controlling language, telling people what they need to do, trying to have these conversations and not liking the fact that it happened in public. Don't like that at all. The downplaying of what happened. He falls on flawed logic way too much. The fact that you came out and saw me and this is a long time ago and you never mentioned anything. Don't like that either. And also, as you'll notice, in all of that, he did not deny one allegation made about him by Guy Pearce. What are your thoughts? Do let me know in the comments if you can, or get in touch on social media. You will find all the links to get in touch on social media in the show description. Neveratruerword.com is the website. There you will find a whole lot more podcasts, loads more videos and ways of analysing the words that people choose to use all around us and helping you see if they are being honest, truthful, straightforward with you, or if they are being deceptive. Neveratruerword.com. And we'll see you soon for something new from Never a Truer Word.